Welcome to 3 Count Commentaries. Smackdown. Triple H takes the week off and lets Roman Reigns carry the show. The allure of the Roman Reigns return carries Smackdown, which was an otherwise mid-show, to mediocrity. But we got news and notes. We got Lashley going to discuss Triple H. We got Conan being a very, very messy young lady. And that seems to be the bulk of it. So we start with Lashley, who tries to explain this utterly unexplainable situation with Triple H. He goes on a podcast called The Laboratory with Plas and says that Vince understood him. Vince was big on the show. He looked at people that were stars, and he saw that in me. There was a lot of little nuggets that Vince would give me all the way throughout my career and tell me different things. So Vince just looked at me like I could tell Bobby works his ass off. I could send him anywhere around the country to represent the company. He just looked at me as a star. I haven't had too much of a connection with Hunter. Hunter has his guys, and I've tried to, but really haven't been able to work together enough to get to know each other. A very diplomatic answer. A lot of people decided to take this and run with it. Lashley is 45 years old, which is probably the realest argument in terms of why Lashley, leaving WWE is not that big of a deal. It is somewhat time to go younger. A lot of it is Lashley had 20 years. He signed with the company in 2004. He was in developmental for a while. He came up in 2005. Then he left the company for a pretty good period of time to go work TNA and Indies and do Bellator and stuff. And then when he came back, there was a whole lot of nothing. There was the sisters and the booty talk, and even though he did do some cool stuff like Leo Rush, but eventually Lashley became one of Vince's guys. And that was kind of like when he was in Vince's doghouse for a little while, I guess you could say, which led to him getting squashed at WrestleMania by Smallfoot European guy Finn Balor, by the way. And I like Finn Balor, but come on. He beat Bobby Lashley in 32 seconds. That made me want to throw my house. I wanted to throw everything in the garbage. But it's familiarity is what he's saying. Not really too familiar with Triple H and his processes. They worked together somewhat. I don't think they ever had a match against each other because Lashley was there, of course, long enough to have wrestled Triple H, but he didn't really. Maybe they just didn't quite understand each other. I loathe to take it to the race route immediately. I will say that a lot of people have decided that this was a bad thing, that Lashley said this, even though I feel like it was diplomatic. I don't think he was trash talking Triple H at all. I just think that he said Triple H has his guys, some of which are not very good, as we continue to see week to week. But some people aren't too big on Lashley. So, it is what it is. But I look at it like difference of perspective, difference of approach. And that's not always a good thing. It's not always a bad thing. But he doesn't seem to be as embittered about leaving as MVP is. MVP seems to be taking this thing personally. And Lashley just kind of looks at it like business from what it sounds like. I can't disagree with that. It is business overall. So, I don't know. There's some words that Lashley was backstage at Dynamite. Hopefully he saw that show and was like, I don't want to be a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this. But he also was probably like a giant running around in the Lollipop Guild back there. Because I'm pretty sure when Lashley came backstage, the only person who could see his shoulders was Lance Archer. He probably had to kneel to talk to everybody else around that joint. So that's going to be an interesting situation. We'll see how it all plays out when Lashley's contract, I guess it's officially up now, isn't it? I heard it was up at the end of the week. Well, the week is over, so maybe it's up. But we'll see where he lands. There's been some conversation about Conan. So Conan, on his podcast, in discussing the Britt Baker MJF scenario, decided to throw this little thing in there. He said, quote, "I can't get into details, but one day, when I can, I will. One of the reasons that Cody left, amongst many, was there were problems between Brandy and Britt. Tony always takes her side. You'll find out one day." It took a while for this thing to sink in, because he made this comment, and then a couple of days went by. You know, people, they ignored Disco Inferno and Conan's show pretty much. But Conan being messy, it sunk in eventually. People were like, wait a minute, what? There was issues between Brandy and Britt? It's possible, I think, 2021, the last full year Cody Rhodes was in AEW, was the peak of Britt Baker's powers as the lead woman in AEW. She was having her feud with Thunder Rosa, and she was beloved by the internet. And then you had Brandy Rhodes, who was, I guess, kind of involved with Jade Cargill and having really bad segments and really bad matches. and maybe that caused the problem. And it's interesting to me. But there was that time there, you know, in 2021 when Brandy cut that promo, the black bitch promo. No, I think that was 2020 maybe. Maybe it was 2020. I don't know. But it was a very trying time for us all, I think, where Brandy did her code switching, quote unquote. And it was humorous, but it was also kind of crazy. Maybe this got her some heat with Britt Baker. That's probably the most controversial. Outside of just being generally bad at wrestling, it's entirely possible that Brandy and Britt Baker had some issues. That being said, they have an interesting relationship, because Britt Baker, in an interview in like 2020, told, I think, Chris Jericho, that it was actually Cody and Brandy that recruited her for AEW, knowing that she had, gone to NXT, and she had kind of gotten, not rejected, but they told her to finish her dentistry, education before coming into WWE. And so she was floating around on the indies, and then it was Cody and Brandy that kind of recruited her into AEW. So who knows what the relationship is with those people, as, people change and grow over time. Maybe they were the ones who brought her into AEW initially, but, Britt got a little bit ahead of herself as she became the top star of the women's division. And considering she has been in the middle of a lot of drama and a lot of problems, it's entirely possible that the two of them at some point got into it. Cody, tried to exercise some kind of authority, and then he got overruled by Tony, which offended Cody, and that's why he left. Cody will be asked about this. He likely dodge it because he's not going to want to be involved with it, and also not confirm that Britt Baker is a problem, because who knows what they might want to do with Britt in the future. And I still think that the door is open that Britt will end up in WWE, especially if this thing in AEW keeps going south. Who knows? She may show up in WWE someday. But as we know, people have heat. They don't have heat forever. Cody's been out of AEW for 2 years. They've been taking pot shots at each other, him and the Elite. But for the most part, they're trying to remain on the up and up. And I would imagine that would be the same for the women. Maybe he just had to get out of there at that time. Or maybe it was like all the stars aligned. He was not really very well liked by the audience. Brandy was hated by the audience. My God, rightfully so, because she was so bad at this. Very, very, very bad at this. And everything just kind of aligned, and he needed a change of scenery. But it was an interesting comment that Conan threw in there. And I'm sure Cody is not going to confirm or deny. I'm pretty sure Tony Khan, when he's asked, he's going to go on a plethora of greats and Zaslavs and a bunch of stuff that don't make sense, and we're not going to get any answers for it. The only time we might get an answer is if somebody asks Britt Baker or somebody asks Brandy. Then maybe they may answer that question. But we do know that Britt seems to have a problem with people getting a lot of TV time and a lot of, being spotlighted a little bit more than her. She seems to be a little bit jealous. And Brandy was getting a lot of that. She was doing stuff with Shaq. She had, I think, for a short time, her own show on the YouTube channel. She had her own stable for a while there. They were really pushing Brandy. They were doing a lot with Brandy. And she was mid at most of it. And that would be the best you could say about it. So I can see how that could rub people the wrong way if they're, she had her own television show, The Road to the Top, where she was featured on that a lot. So there was a lot of opportunity to piss somebody off if somebody was going to get mad, especially if they seem to have problems with people getting a lot of TV time. So there that goes. Now let's get into SmackDown. Let's truncate this opening segment to Kevin Owens does not want to be the WWE champion for reasons unknown outside of, I don't deserve it. I don't deserve it. And Cody Rhodes assures him that the fans think he does and he thinks he does. So he absolutely should wrestle for the title, and Kevin Owens is like, I don't think I deserve it. And then they go and talk to Nick Aldis. Nick Aldis says, well, you don't want to do it. I'll give it to Roman. Then Kevin Owens goes on an absolute tirade about how he had Roman Reigns beat 3 years ago. Roman doesn't deserve it. Roman shouldn't get a rematch because nobody gets rematches. He didn't even get a rematch from when he was a Universal Champion. And Nick Aldis is like, okay, well, you've talked yourself into it. You're the number one contender. You're the man. You're the guy. And I was just sitting here looking at my screen, dumbfounded. Like, why are we in this world where this guy is trying to talk himself out of being the number one contender? He doesn't want to be the champion. Look, even if you want to say he's a babyface, and, but he's not John Cena. John Cena's the kind of guy who would say something like this. Not Kevin Owens. Not Kevin Owens. This is terrible. Not just the match itself, because I'm sure the match will be, the in-ring part of it will likely be fine. But I don't like this, because I don't like Kevin Owens. I don't like that Kevin Owens is playing 4D chess with everybody. He's the smartest guy in the room. He's the only guy who watches the show, so he knows that, I didn't get my rematch when I was Universal Champion, and Roman Reigns is a cheater who was surrounded by the Bloodline for 4 years. Yeah, we get all that. The point of these events is to make money, right? Roman Reigns would have made money. And Nick Aldis should have made that decision. But they're not going to do Cody and Roman in goddamn Germany. They're not going to do that. So Kevin Owens as a stopgap opponent is fine. He is the upper mid-card guy that you can put in this position. The problem I have with this is there's no heat. This is a friendly challenge between Cody and Kevin Owens that does nothing for Cody or Kevin Owens, in my opinion. We know Kevin Owens is not going to win, so there's no tension. There's no real intrigue there. The only thing that they could do, and since the event is this month, it's in like 2 weeks, I think. 2 or 3 weeks. They don't have a lot of time to build a lot of animosity between these two guys. So I don't know what they're going to do. And I guess that's supposed to be the intrigue is Kevin Owens going to take this thing seriously and get mad? Or is he going to go in there and just, I'm going to do my best and lose and then that's it? Or I don't know. It seemed like it would be the right time to do a heel turn. But then they should have just done the heel turn and not done this whole, we're going to drag Kevin Owens kicking and screaming into the main event, because that's dumb. Why wouldn't he want to be in the main event? Even if he didn't feel like he deserved it, he should still say, ooh, opportunity to be world champion. Well, if you're going to give it to me, I'm going to take it. Or maybe the role should have been reversed. Maybe Kevin Owens should have asked Cody for the title shot, and Cody reluctantly gave it to him, which would lead people to think that Kevin Owens was going to turn on Cody, when in reality, he just wants to, test himself or whatever. But I don't like Kevin Owens, so This was very depressing. I'm like, oh my God, I gotta sit through this Berlin show with this. This is probably gonna go on first. There's just no heat between these two guys. And I doubt there's gonna be any in 3 weeks because Triple H tells stories like Sisyphus pushes the rock uphill. It's moving, but it ain't going much. He just basically started a new story here without generating too much intrigue. It's like, okay, eventually I guess Kevin Owens is going to turn on him, but we're not going to get the satisfaction of that being the first match or that being the match. It's the Hulk Hogan formula is your friend turns on you, you know, but here they're like, oh, we're going to be good buddies, at least for this match. And then maybe the next one is Kevin Owens turning on Cody. But that one's going to hit a lot less knowing that they've already had the match. But Kevin Owens has been a babyface for far too long, as far as I'm concerned. I think that his best work is as a heel. He should be a heel. But he's been a babyface since like 2021 or something. I think he had like a really short run as a heel with Sami Zayn, and they were a tag team for a short time. But I don't know how long ago that was. But he's been a babyface almost the entire time Roman Reigns was a heel and been the champion. He's been a babyface almost the entire time. For somebody who's actually better as a heel than a babyface, Kevin Owens being a babyface this long is kind of dumb. You know, and so maybe Triple H is going to fix that problem, which might actually be beneficial to him. But the getting there is not going to be fun. But Kevin Owens is one of Triple H's guys, so we already know that he's the one who pushed for Kevin Owens to be champion in the first time, and actually on screen helped him. So there that goes. So one of your main events for Bash at the Berlin, Cody Rhodes versus Kevin Owens. Just kick me in the balls now, bro. It's over. So they did the tag team qualifier. It is a tournament. They didn't call it a tournament because that would run people off. So they decided, we're going to have a stealth tournament. So it's 4 teams. Theory and Waller, the Street Profits, DIY, and Pretty Deadly. So the Street Profits defeated Austin Theory and Grayson Waller with the elevated blockbuster. The Street Profits said they haven't been champions in 3 years, which sounds about right. I thought it was longer than that, honestly. And they actually got their OG theme back, which is great. Oh, so good. Thank you. I'm a big fan of Street Profits. I think they should win this tournament. I think they should. Their opponents next week, I think, will be DIY, who defeated Pretty Deadly. I'm a big fan of Pretty Deadly. I like Pretty Deadly. I think that they're underutilized in terms of characters on this show. When they did their segment with Tiffany Stratton, I looked at that and said, man, that's magic right there. That's a, early 2000s comedy, coming of age comedy. Those 3 together being on the screen at the same time, I'm seeing like American Pie and a bunch of other stuff they could have been doing that could have been fun, even though, Pretty Deadly's kind of gay. But it works. Like, all of those characters working together, Tiffany Stratton with Pretty Deadly, that looked like it works for me. Like, it could be a fun dynamic if she was to play into what they were doing. Treating them like best friends. That could have been fun. But Pretty Deadly, nobody cares about them. Even though they're taller than the average small foot European guy that Triple H uses, he kind of forgets that Pretty Deadly exists. I mean, so all the charisma and personality and skill that they have, just throw it in the garbage because they're not small enough. They have to be smaller. He likes them smaller. DIY defeated Pretty Deadly. Not a fan of that. No, I'm not a fan of DIY. Not a fan at all. Johnny Gargano upset that he lost in his hometown, in front of his family. I think he deserved more than that. They should have left him in Cleveland. Leave him where you find him, as far as I'm concerned. Johnny Gargano sucks. Yes, indeed. On the subject of Tiffany Stratton and Pretty Deadly, Tiffany Stratton is actually planning Nia Jax's championship celebration. This led, of course, to Pretty Deadly saying, well, we become the tag team champions. You should plan our celebration. And they wanted to have a musical because that's their thing now. They want to have a musical, which should happen eventually. But it's not going to because these things never happen. We never get to have fun. And anyway, Tiffany Stratton ends up running into Chelsea Green. And Chelsea Green sees this whole thing as a plot, saying that if you were Nia Jax's real friend, you know Nia Jax hates pink. And then said that her outfit was abysmal, and that all of this is just her trying to get Nia Jax to let her guard down so she can cash in the Money in the Bank. Then Tiffany Stratton said that Chelsea Green can do it all. She's arrogant, she's delusional. I was like, okay, well, these two characters could be friends, but they're being catty, which I like that too. Tiffany Stratton kind of fits with Chelsea Green, but they're being catty with each other, which works. Neither one of them needs to turn babyface. But I think eventually one of them will, if they continue to go back and forth like this. I mean, the more you have people get into it, the more the crowd is going to choose one over the other. So unless they're going to turn Tiffany, which might be the one, if she keeps getting the upper hand, she'll probably be the one that turns. But turning Chelsea might not be the worst thing in the world. Chelsea Green is actually very, entertaining. But I don't understand why she's still hanging around with Piper Niven. It just seems like they're just doing a thing because we don't know what to do with Piper Niven. Even though now that Nia Jax is the champion, Piper Niven would probably be a pretty good opponent, because Nia Jax wouldn't have she's still bigger than Piper Niven, but that size advantage would be negated, and it would be a cool way to tell a story. But they just beat Piper Niven, and they've done nothing with her since then. So, I mean, what am I talking about? Jade Cargill defeated Alba Fire. Alba Fire got a little bit of offense in, but it was still it wasn't a squash match in traditional sense. A squash match really it was short. Let's put it like that. A traditional squash match, she would have gotten much less offense and probably wouldn't have bumped Jade Cargill at all. Instead, Jade Cargill was in the ring taking like tornado DDTs, which I was kind of like, why is this happening? But Jade can't get any better if they keep putting her in short matches. She needs to lengthen the matches. Maybe long house show matches are probably the best ones for that. So, after the match, Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair got jumped by Blair Davenport, Alba Fire, and Isla Dawn, which led to Naomi coming out there and helping them. Okay, so Naomi, Bianca, Jade versus Blair Davenport, Alba Fire, and Isla Dawn. Fine, whatever. It's not even a side quest at this moment. It barely exists. And we're already back to reruns because Naomi, who already beat Blair Davenport, and it wasn't that long ago, they're going to be wrestling again next week. Okie dokie. I'm not going to complain about this. At least it's something. It's I don't think it really does any of the 6 women involved a favor, but because you can't hear any of them talk, and you can't really get any of them over. But at the very least, Jade, Bianca, and Naomi have a history. They've been partners maybe a couple months ago. So it's not like a completely new and random formulation like Blair Davenport, Isla Dawn, and Alba Fire, which I would prefer if they did like a vignette or something to explain why they work together and how they get along and whatever. But no, you don't get any of that stuff. It's just completely random, dog. All right, LA Knight hit it and quit it. Came out, cut a promo. It was pretty good. Put himself over. He cuts a heel promo as a babyface. So it's all about him, what he did. He didn't care about the fans at all. So Santos Escobar interrupted him, said that LA Knight sucks and that he's not a good fit for the title, and that his success is a fleeting moment before Santos Escobar wins the title himself, and that he deserves to be the United States champion. LA Knight says, well, I guess you're going to deserve to get your ass kicked by me again. But first he has to qualify. He has to defeat Andrade El Idolo. So, it's my destiny. So, Andrade loses to Santos Escobar. This blew my mind, but I'm not surprised by it. Baron Corbin and Apollo Crews jumped Legado del Fantasma in the middle of the match. There was a sunset powerbomb by Andrade, which was cool, but then I think they went to commercial right afterwards or something, so you didn't get to really take it in. There was a poison Rana from the second rope by Santos Escobar, which is also pretty damn cool. And then Carmelo Hayes distracted Andrade, and then Elektra Lopez distracted Andrade, and that led to a roll-up win by Santos Escobar. fine. You know, it wasn't a clean win, but it gets Andrade out of this scenario. It continues his thing with Carmelo Hayes, which he's beaten the guy twice already. I don't know what more you can do. I think you need to take it to the next level. They've had a can you top this kind of, you know, series of matches. And it's like, okay, are they going to keep having matches or what? Like, what's happening here? But Santos Escobar was in a storyline with LA Knight recently. So him being the first contender makes sense. So this is fine. I didn't dislike this. I just wish it would have been, well, I guess it is Andrade going up the card. So it's positive. And Santos Escobar's been in the same place for 2 years, but Andrade is at least moving up the card. He went from not being featured to being nearly the number 1 contender to the U.S. title. And they hooped in this match. It was a really good match. So the match itself was pretty good, even though I kind of was like cringed at the finish because there were so many run-ins and angles going on, which is one of the negatives about WWE, but it's traditional WWE booking. You're almost always going to get run-ins and distraction roll-ups and stuff like that, which, you know, for WWE TV is pretty regular. Giovanni Vinci had a vignette. He's back. No limits, relentless style and success is his destiny. Another guy saying it's his destiny. This got a lot of people very excited. I wasn't that excited because, look, I thought he was cool as a solo in NXT, and I think this was a very necessary rebrand for a guy who got booted out of Imperium. My only issue with this is what happened to Nakamura. And I know people are going to say those are two different people, but Nakamura had a bunch of vignettes too. He didn't do shit. This is going to be one of those things where if you see this thing more than twice, pretty much guess that it's not going to go anywhere. Remember, they used to do vignettes for Ludwig Kaiser as a solo act. And you think he's going to get a huge push. He got one big win over Sheamus, and that was it. The rest of the time, mid. Ain't really going anywhere and still doing introductions for Gunther. So don't get too excited about a guy having a vignette in WWE, because either he's not going to show up at all, like Nakamura, who I have no idea where he is. He's backstage taking pictures of people, apparently. He's a photographer now. He's taking up photography. He's done surfing. His surfing thing is really taken off. He should be an Olympic level surfer at this point. He's been doing this for so long. And now he's gotten bored doing that. He decided to take his next level is going to be photography. So he's going to go backstage and start taking pictures of people instead of having matches. But then again, he's like a 40-year-old Japanese guy, beat the shit. Who knows, man? But Giovanni Vinci, to me, he was the replacement for Claudio / Cesaro as the super mid card work rate guy. Not a main event talent, at least not right now. He's good, really good actually. He's a solid US champion, Intercontinental champion level guy for the long term. And that's probably where he will be for a while. So I think he's a really good talent. I just question whether Triple H is going to have space for him in a spot where they barely have any time for Carmelo Hayes, who is fairly new, and a lot of the other people that they are trying to use here. They did a vignette for Kevin Sullivan, the Taskmaster, which I thought was very touching. They talked about him being a mentor, a rival, and a creator. It's amazing. In terms of Kevin Sullivan, great talent, you know, especially if you have to go way back in the day to really recognize it. Because if you grew up in the 90s, he was pretty much Skeletor. All he did, he was just like this really short and stumpy, balding guy who laughed a lot. And he just reminded me so much of Danny DeVito that I could not take him seriously. It wasn't until I started looking at the stuff he did previously, before he started losing his hair, that I was like, oh, this guy's actually pretty talented. He's pretty good. But if you just watch like early 90s WCW, I just kept seeing, what was the movie that I watched with Danny DeVito in when I was a kid? Twins? With him and Schwarzenegger? That's all I kept seeing was like, this is bad guy Danny DeVito. I just couldn't get it out of my head. And it's that stays with me today, unfortunately. So despite how amazing he was in introducing the satanic mysticism for people who hate magic. You know, Kevin Sullivan kind of started it. Well, he popularized it in Florida, you know, with the satanic panic and, you know, but they did some really cool stuff. You know, you have to go back and watch that stuff. And I'm not sure if it's available on the network, even though I'm pretty sure WWE owns a lot of that. I'm not sure if it's available for you to go and watch. It's definitely clips online for you to go and look at. But anytime I see him in WCW, I just think Danny DeVito. And that's where I saw him the first time. And so first impressions last the longest, unfortunately. All right, so Solo Sikoa goes to the ring. He's going to challenge Roman Reigns to come and take the Ulafala from him if that's what he wants to do. And so Roman Reigns promptly comes out there and decimates Guerrillas of Destiny. I mean, just beat them from pillar to post. They look absolutely feckless in comparison to Roman Reigns. Then Roman gets in the ring. He beats up Solo a little bit before Tonga Loa pulls Solo from the ring. Solo then snatches the Ulafala after he dropped it. I'm not surprised people are going to be like, it's a stupid necklace. Why didn't Roman just come out there with a chainsaw? It's a stupid necklace. Anyway, as Roman is absolutely killing Guerrillas of Destiny, Solo is in the aisleway yelling how Roman isn't the chief anymore. The crowd is going absolutely ape, chanting OTC. I mean, they're basically throwing babies in the air and kissing their sister in the mouth and a bunch of other stuff going on in Oklahoma. They were very excited to see Roman. A very slimmed down Roman Reigns, too. I think a lot of people are starting to notice he's slimmed down quite a bit. He's been slimming down over the last 2 years, too. Like, it's been slow but subtle. You know, him and John Cena. You know, they just kind of been... They almost like going from Dragon Ball Z to Dragon Ball Super. Almost. Like, the aura is still there, so you don't really notice that he's not as big as he was. But Solo is backing off, you know, and eventually the other two guys are murdered and their corpses are left laying around after Roman had speared them and hit them with steps and speared them through barricades and juggled them and slam dunked them through the hoop. And he just beat the shit out of these guys by himself, which was interesting booking decision. To have Roman pretty much just kill the Guerrillas of Destiny solo, which kind of me like, why does he even need the Usos at this point? Like, he just beat the shit out of these guys by himself. Now, of course, the reason you do this is so Jacob Fatu, who is not here, they wrote him off TV with the ankle injury. So it shows that they have some pre-planning. They knew that they were going to have Roman beat up Guerrillas of Destiny, but they didn't want Jacob to get beat up. So they wrote Jacob off so he wouldn't be there when this happened. So the reason why Roman is going to need help is because of Jacob Fatu. So this is going to elevate Jacob and make him more important to the storyline. But now Solo and Roman are going at each other about who is the real tribal chief. And Roman said there can only be one. He mouthed the words, "It can only be one," as Solo was backing away. I think it's too early to have this match. I don't think they should have the match in Berlin. I think it's too early. Save it for, I don't know, but save it. I think it's too early for Roman to beat up the Guerrillas of Destiny. I think it's too early for these guys to be fighting, you know? I think Roman returned too early. I think he should have brought in Jimmy first. I think Jimmy coming in, telling the story of this is why he attacked Jay, because he didn't want Jay to act like Roman, and Solo is acting like Roman right now. I think that would have been a better story. Not saying that the match between Solo and Jimmy would have been good, but the promos would at least would have made sense and would have furthered why Jimmy went back to the Bloodline and why he did what he did to Jay. But they brought in Roman first, so clearly they're going to have Roman try to recruit and reform the original Bloodline, which is fine. I'm okay with that, and that's obvious because everybody wants to see these guys fight each other. It's just, if Roman could kick all these guys' asses by himself, what did he need the Usos for? And to me, that's the story of this segment. If he can do all this shit by himself, he doesn't need these guys. And I guess Jacob's going to prove to be too much. So I guess Jacob and Roman is the big match, not Solo and Roman. Anyway, what do you guys think? Let me know in the comment section below, and I'll talk to you guys later.